Good morning and welcome to Global News on Signature TV. I am Christopher Lele. In the headlines, Trade Union Congress threatens nationwide strike over 5% petroleum tax. Nigerian Nursing Council abolishes exam failure policy. Israel's Netanyahu warns Gaza City residents to leave. And Man City and Premier League settle dispute over sponsorship rules. Details shortly.
Every second, every minute, every day, news is breaking, events occur, and there are new developments. At Signature TV, we follow these stories objectively, bringing all sides without bias, explaining the complex issues, breaking down the numbers, and investigating the issues behind the news. Anywhere and everywhere, near or far, wherever the news is, we will be there. Signature TV. News in your pocket.
With a population of about 36 million people, the Southeast is awash with stories. Every day on Southeast News, we tell the peculiar story of the Southeast and her people.
Our Southeast should be the Silicon Valley of Nigeria.
Their successes, achievements, and daily challenges. Do you have a Southeast story to share? Community achievements and challenges, completed and uncompleted projects, bad roads, water scarcity, erosion, flooding, insecurity, or even disagreements? Bring it on to Southeast News. On Southeast News, no story is too big or too small. Southeast News. Let's tell our story. Showing on Signature TV every weekday at 4 p.m. WAT, 1600 hours GMT.
The Trade Union Congress of Nigeria, TUC, has threatened to embark on a nationwide strike if the federal government fails to withdraw its proposed 5% tax on petroleum products. TUC President General Festus Osifo stated this in a joint statement he signed with Mr. Nuhu Toro, General Secretary of the Union, on Monday in Abuja. TUC described the policy as economic wickedness against already overburdened citizens, battling subsidy removal, soaring fuel prices, food inflation, and a weakening naira. The union urged the federal government to immediately stop the anti-people's plan in its entirety. It added that the failure to do so would leave it no option but to mobilize Nigerians and the mass for a total nationwide resistance. The Minister of Finance and Coordinating Minister of the Economy, Wale Edu, has warned that Nigerians' rising debt, high service costs, weak revenues, and shrinking development finance are clashing with increasing demands for public spending. Speaking at the 11th West African Association of Public Accounts Committee conference in Abuja, Edu said stronger parliamentary oversight and fiscal discipline are needed to ensure borrowing delivers value. He noted that reforms such as subsidy removal and exchange rate liberalization are boosting investor confidence and revenues, with Nigeria's debt to GDP ratio at 38.8% and debt service to revenue at 60% in 2024.
The rising burden of public debt has become a matter of urgent national and regional concern. While it is widely accepted that public debt remains a vital instrument for financing development, especially in emerging economies, it must be emphasized that such debt must remain sustainable, transparent, and justifiable. Effective parliamentary oversight, particularly through the work of the Public Account and Finance Committees, is therefore indispensable to ensuring that debt accumulation does not become a pathway to fiscal crisis or intergenerational problem. It is therefore fitting that WAPAC has chosen this critical theme for deliberation at the 11th conference holding here in Abuja. This very important gathering also aligns closely with the legislative agenda of Nigeria's 10th House of Representatives under the able leadership of His Excellency the Right Honorable Tajuddin Abbas, PhD. The House, therefore, is deeply committed to promoting regional integration, advancing parliamentary diplomacy, and strengthening democratic institutions. We believe that entrenching a culture of accountability, transparency, probity, and fiscal discipline in the management of public finances is not just a national imperative, but of course a regional and...
In Nigeria, recent available data indicate that our debt trajectory has reached a critical point, showing that like many African countries, we continue to borrow internally and externally to fund capital and sometimes non-capital projects. This highlights the urgent need for a stronger oversight, transparent borrowing practices, and a collective resolve to ensure that tangible economic and social returns match every naira borrowed. Across Africa, debt levels have reached alarming proportions. By 2022, the continent's total public debt has reached $1.8 trillion, with external debts alone surpassing $1 trillion by 2023. Several countries are now in dangerous debt to GDP territory. In many cases, governments are spending more on servicing debt than on healthcare and other essential services, shrinking the fiscal space available for development. The continental picture makes clear that Africa faces not just a budgetary concern, but a structural crisis that demands urgent parliamentary attention and coordinated reform.
Speaker House of Representatives Tajuddin Abbas, represented by the House Leader Julius Ihuvere, said the country's debt trajectory had reached a critical point, rising to 149.9 trillion in the first quarter of 2025 from 121.7 trillion a year earlier. He warned that the debt-to-GDP ratio had climbed to 52%, breaching the 40% legal ceiling and threatening fiscal sustainability. House Public Accounts Committee Chairman Bamidele Salam stressed that debt must be sustainable and transparent, while Senate President Godswill Akpabio, represented by the Chairman Senate Committee on Capital Markets, Senator Osita, said poorly managed debt risks mortgaging citizens' future.
Public debt, when properly managed, is a strategic instrument for financing growth, infrastructure, and sustainable development. However, when left unchecked or shrouded in opacity, it becomes a burden that mortgages the future of our citizens. This is why parliamentary oversight is indispensable. I will recall the last conference that was held in Benin. You also examined this pressing issue of debt management, and today you are further re-examining this subject matter, public debt, which has even become more expedient for greater parliamentary oversight. In Nigeria, to underscore how important this is, the 1999 Constitution, as amended, establishes a strong legal foundation for parliamentary scrutiny of financial matters, specifically Sections 80, Sub 3, Sections 85, Sub 2, Section 85, Sub 5, which empowers the Public Account Committee to examine these reports and ensure accountability.
The theme of this conference, strengthening parliamentary oversight of public debt, the role of finance and public accounts committees, is both apt and it is timely. The message is clear. We must act decisively to strengthen oversight, deepen fiscal discipline, and ensure that public resources deliver real and measurable value and facilities that are fit for purpose to our people. If we look at the vision behind the President's actions, it is to build a strong, resilient, and inclusive economy inclusive in the sense that it provides good quality jobs for men, for women, for young people in particular, and where the private sector drives growth. The private sector is 90% of the Nigerian economy, and it's the same generally across all the countries present here today. It is the private sector that we look to make the investments that increase productivity, that grow the economy, create jobs, and thereby lift millions out of poverty.
An economic analyst, Dr. Stan Ukeje, is accusing the Nigerian government of inflicting hardship on the citizens through excessive borrowing and mismanagement of the country's resources. Ukeje, who featured on the breakfast show on Signature TV, regretted that the people who manage the country not only get to office by breaking the rules, but also break the rule even while in office. He noted that the country's public debt grew by over 60% between 2002 and 2023, which he observed has continued to grow till date.
In my family, myself, my wife, our children, we earn income. When we earn income, we depend on that our income for consumption. We also depend on it for savings. We save some against unforeseen circumstances. If we need to borrow, and if we do borrow, it is to do what our savings are unable to do, help us do. If we borrow things that we borrow to invest in things that will bring returns to enable us pay the debt, grow our savings, so that in future we do not borrow as much. Unfortunately, the public sector does not behave that way. Critically, what happens is that the people who manage the economy do not want to be bound by rules. They come to office breaking the rules, they stay in office breaking the rules. Nobody restrains them, because the person who is the chief finance officer of the federation, of the state government, is the permanent secretary of the Ministry of Finance. If you bring anything for him, he will tell you, or he should tell you, that our rule is that our debt should not exceed X percentage of our revenue, our sustainable revenue. Therefore, we should not borrow. But if you do that, you may find that the permanent secretary is held overnight by the EFCC.
The economist stated that the leaders do all sorts of things in the name of governance simply because their families and dependents are immune from the system, having sent them out of the country to places they consider suitable for them. The Speaker of the House of Representatives, Tajuddin Abbas, has called for trade and investment frameworks between Africa and Asia, especially for green energy and digital economies. Abbas made the call at the first general meeting of the Asian African Parliamentary Council in Beirut, Republic of Lebanon. He said there is a need to prioritize establishing frameworks for investment, trade and exchange of ideas between Africa and Asia to bring about progress in the green energy and digital economies. According to the Speaker, the Parliament must lead the way in fostering partnership based on opportunity and innovation in a changing world. The Speaker said Nigeria's 10th House of Representatives is integrating technology and artificial intelligence to improve parliamentary processes through digital platforms that promote transparency and efficiency in the National Assembly, as highlighted in the collaborations with the Interparliamentary Union. At the ceremony, the lawmakers adopted the provisional draft agenda of the meeting and had a general debate on the idea of establishing the Asian African Parliamentary Council with a focus on the importance of international blocs. The Nigerian government has consistently announced higher revenue figures derived from oil and non-oil receipts. These figures have also translated to higher allocation to the state and local governments. Is there therefore a financial windfall for Nigeria's sub-nationals? Correspondent Chimeze Nzedima seek answers to this question.
The figures cannot be disputed. The natural conclusion is that Nigerian states and local governments are enjoying good financial times. To make such natural conclusions seems to be lying with numbers. What is the worth of the more currencies being received by the states and local governments? That's the issue which media editors were faced with on Signature Television Prime Current Affairs program, The Conference.
I have to say that there is no financial windfall, as far as I'm concerned. If you check what will happen now in terms of exchange rates and in terms of inflationary pressures compared to what we had some 5-6 years ago or even beyond, you will realize that there's no financial windfall because the cost of goods have gone up. There's even what we call an economic stagflation, where you have the same package but quantity less. Sometimes, in some cases, even the quality has gone down. In numbers, we could say there's a financial windfall. But in terms of purchasing power, I don't think there's anything.
Apart from the devaluation of the naira, which has substantially reduced the purchasing capacity of the government and citizens, inflation has added to the pressure on whatever increased income the subnationals now have. Cost of projects, domestic goods and services make governments fail in their promises and families short on meeting family needs.
Maybe my salary is 200,000 and I was jubilating. Do you know that today, anybody that has a car cannot survive on 200,000 naira salary? Because the minimum you can spend on fueling your car, maybe if all these small cars, is 40,000 a week. 40,000 times 4, that's 120,000. So if you're on
160.
So fine, maybe 2 years ago my salary was on 60,000. You increase it to 200,000. Is that not what you're talking about windfall? But as at that 2 years ago, 60,000, maybe one quarter would have taken care of my fueling for 1 month. Now you increase it from 60,000 to 200,000, and you're telling me that you're giving me a windfall. When out of 150 of that amount, I will use to fuel my car. I've not paid school fees. Every school has increased their school fees by 3-4 times, like my brother Tochukwu said. Everything you need, even transportation.
Tochukwu Okorie, Executive Secretary, Provocate Transparency and Accountability Initiative, admitted that state and local governments are receiving larger allocations, but civil servants and the ordinary citizens remain squeezed in hard times.
This volume of money is in the hands of the subnational governments. The civil servants in those governments would have gone home better if they had more, a higher volume of those papers in their own hands to at least deal with inflationary tendencies which don't select whether you are in government or out of government, or whether you're a civil servant or you're a businessman. So the transition from what it used to be to where it is does not reflect at the civil service level, because the jump from 35,000 to 70,000 minimum wage does not address the more than triple increase in inflation.
Beyond the economics lies another structural problem: the refusal of many state governments to fully implement the Supreme Court judgment, granting local governments direct access to their federal allocation. Experts warn that this obstruction prevents local councils from deploying resources that could ease grassroots hardship, further proving that the so-called financial windfall remains largely theoretical.
If I'm local government chairman, I will not be able to enter any form of negotiation to implement the minimum wage of 70,000 or 72,000 because I am yet to access the funds. It's a function of funding. You may also be informed that even in some states, local government are not allowed to generate their own IGR. So the taxes that local government are even supposed to collect, some states collect it on behalf of the local government. And in most cases, they don't remit it to the local government. So the local government is handicapped.
You have the control of your local governments. Do what you expected of grassroots effectiveness and restoration of their hope is in your hand. There's nothing, no one is among us on all these tiers of government. There was some gossip that maybe we had a disagreement or quarrel and everything when it was local government's autonomy. No. Just drive the development down there to the local government authorities. Nobody wants to take the control away from you.
As allocations rise on paper, Nigerians continue to grapple with reduced purchasing power, leaving the debate wide open on whether subnationals are truly richer, or simply burdened with more money on paper chasing fewer goods, whose prices remain in the sky. In Abuja, I am Chimize Zadima for Signature TV.
The presidency has announced the immediate dismissal of Fego Omonobo, who served as Special Assistant to the President on Digital and Creative Economy in the Office of the Vice President. Director of Information and Public Relations Abiondu Oladujoye made this announcement on Monday at the presidency. The presidency further warned that anyone dealing with him under the claim of representing the Tinubu administration does so at their own risk. Osun State and the federal government on Monday at the Federal High Court in Abuja engaged in a fierce legal fireworks as the state challenged the transfer of its suit on the withheld local government funds from Osogbo Division to Abuja Division of the same court. The suit in question is seeking to restrain the Central Bank of Nigeria (CBN) from opening accounts for the local government chairmans elected on the platform of the All Progressives Congress (APC) in 2022. Whom the state government affirmed have been sacked by the same Federal High Court. According to the motion, the plaintiff seeks the settling aside of the fiat said to have been given at the instance of the Chief Judge contained in a letter dated August 21, signed by his personal assistant, Joshua Ibrahim. The plaintiff also wants an order setting aside the directive of the Chief Judge that the matter be heard by a vacation judge and not the court should decline, and that the court should decline jurisdiction to hear the matter during its annual vacation and return the case file back to Osogbo Judicial Division of the Federal High Court. The National Orientation Agency has urged Nigerians to reclaim unclaimed dividends associated with their names and companies. The agency, which made this public on its official X account on Monday, said investors and ordinary Nigerians can claim their funds by visiting Securities and Exchange Commission website. The agency raised alarm over the staggering 190 billion naira in unclaimed dividends accumulating in the Nigerian stock market. Unclaimed dividends are cash payments a company has declared for shareholders but that remain unpaid or uncollected. In this case, companies keep funds in unclaimed or suspended accounts, report them to regulators, and after a statutory period, may transfer them to the government. Entitled shareholders can reclaim the money by contacting the company's registrar with proof of identity and ownership. The federal government has ordered the Nigerian Civil Aviation Authority (NCAA) to sanction any airline that disrupts flights without genuine reasons. The Director of Public Affairs and Consumer Protection at NCAA, Michael Achimogo, gave the order in a statement posted on X on Monday. Achimogo cautioned that situations where airline staff deliberately abandoned passengers and leave NCAA consumer protection officers to deal with angry customers would no longer be tolerated. According to him, exposing aviation authorities officials to unnecessary risk while supporting airlines and protecting passengers' rights was unacceptable. Achimogo confirmed that in line with directives from the Minister of Aviation and Aerospace Development, the naming and shaming of airing airlines will commence immediately. The Joint Admissions and Matriculation Board (JAMB) Special Committee on Examination Infractions has presented its report to the examination body, exposing how technology-driven malpractice is undermining Nigeria's admission process. The chairman of the committee, Jake Apele, said the team uncovered 4,251 cases of finger blending and 192 instances of AI-assisted impersonation through image morphing during its investigations into the 2025 Unified Tertiary Matriculation Examination, UTME. The committee also stated that it documented 1,878 false disability claims, forged credentials, multiple national identification numbers and registrations, and collusion between candidates and examination syndicates. Epele lamented that malpractice has become highly organized, technology-driven, and dangerously normalized. He said that parents, tutorial centers, schools, and even some CBT operators were complicit in the fraud, while weak legal frameworks made enforcement difficult. The committee called on JAMB to adopt a multi-pronged response that includes deploying AI-powered biometric anomaly tools, real-time monitoring, and a central examination security operations center. Up ahead, residents block third mainland bridge to protest demolition in Lagos. Police arrest 30 suspects for thuggery in Niger during Maulud procession. Details of these and more after the break.
We are local.
International communities observing why the main market is in chaos. People are...
We are national.
Those in support of this motion as amended say aye. Aye.
We have taken the vote by default.
We are international.
Israeli airstrikes.
Donald Trump left us the worst unemployment.
Signature TV, news in your pocket.
The Nursing and Midwifery Council of Nigeria, NMCN, has abolished its long-standing policy that barred students, nurses, from continuing their training after 3 failed attempts at the council's professional examinations. In a circular dated September 1, 2025, and signed by the registrar Ndagi Al-Hassan, the council announced that candidates who fail any part of their professional exam will now be allowed to retake only that section until they secure a pass. The new policy takes effect from September 2025. The circular was addressed to state commissioners of health, teaching hospital directors, university vice-chancellors, heads of nursing schools, and professional associations. According to the council, the reform reflects its commitment to align nursing education with global best practices by shifting from an elimination-focused policy to a more supportive, student-centered approach. The NMCN urged institutions to implement measures that would support struggling students, while stressing that candidates must maintain at least 80% lecture and clinical attendance to qualify for receipts. It also directed that each failed attempt at a receipt would count against the training institution. Human rights activist Omoyele Sowore has vowed not to retract a controversial statement he made against President Bola Tinubu. Sowore, while reacting to a comment made by the president during his state visit to Brazil, described the Nigerian leader as a criminal. His post, however, landed him in trouble as the Nigerian Department of State Services reportedly approached X and Facebook to deactivate his account. The DSS also issued a 1-week ultimatum to the activist, warning him to delete and retract his statement or face the consequences. But in his last post on X, Sowore vowed to stand by his statement, stressing that even if he was given till the end of Tinubu's tenure in 2027, he will not retract his statement. The Lagos state government has disbursed retirement bond certificates worth 1.52 billion naira to 798 retirees as part of their accrued service benefit under the contributory pension scheme. Speaking at the event, the Director General of the Lagos State Pension Commission, Babalola Obilola, said the gesture reflected Governor Babajide Sanwo-Olu's commitment to ensuring retirees get their benefits without delay. The certificates were presented at the 110th Batch Retirement Bond Certificate presentation ceremony held in Alausa, Ikeja, where hundreds of retirees were present to receive their entitlement. Obilano explained that Lagos operates a pay-as-you-go pension system, which allows for timely settlement once documentation is completed. He added that LASPEG has consistently worked with pension fund operators, annuity service providers, and ministries, departments, and agencies to ensure smooth pension processing. Residents of the Oworoshoki community on Monday blocked a section of the Third Mainland Bridge to protest demolition of structures in the area. It was gathered that the protesters are occupants of the unapproved buildings along the Iyana-Oworoshoki coastal line who were displaced on Saturday after a combined enforcement team from the Lagos State government commenced demolition. The affected residents had reportedly been served a 1-month quick notice but refused to vacate. Reacting to the protest, Senior Special Assistant to the new media of the state governor, Jibril Gawat, confirmed that normalcy had since been restored. The Niger State Police Command has arrested 30 suspects during Maulud procession in Minna for alleged involvement in thuggery and other related crimes. A statement issued on Monday by the command spokesperson Wasiu Abiondu said some of those arrested were Abdullahi Ibrahim, Zaradin Ibrahim, Dauda Usma, Abubakar Ibrahim, Ashiru Rabiu, Abba Musa, and Mohammed Abubakar, and others. The suspects were picked up on Saturday between 7 a.m. and 9 p.m. in different locations across the state capital, including Agwan Saki, Lamawa, Agwan Daji, New Market, Sabon Gari, Kuta Road, Obasanjo Complex, Ogbomosho Street, Lagos Street, and the Central Roundabout. Exhibits recovered from the suspect included 3 knives, 3 cutlasses, and 1 iron rod, scissors, cannabis, shisha apparatus, and other illicit chemical substances. In a separate operation, the police also intercepted 1 Mohammed Usman of Giadogo Village, Edo local government area of Kwara State, on Friday in Makera Town. He was reportedly arrested with 2 locally fabricated guns and 6 rounds of 7.62 mm live ammunition. The Kogi State Vigilante Services has announced the adoption of 3 passengers of an 18-seater Toyota bus at Aku Village along Okene-Lokoja Federal Highway at Davi Local Government Area, Kogi State. Controller General Kogi State Vigilante Service Ibrahim Sani disclosed this in a statement issued on Monday. In a swift response, the KSVS or Sarah Command and 6 local hunters had engaged the kidnappers in the gun duel around 3 p.m. on Monday, which led to a bystander being hit by a stray bullet. Sani said although the suspect escaped into the forest with 3 kidnapped passengers, the bus driver and 3 others were rescued from the scene. He said that the State Vigilante Service is actively gathering intelligence to enhance quick tracking of the kidnappers for a possible crackdown and release of the victims. The family of Gloria Ikego, a victim of the kidnapping incident which occurred on Friday, has appealed to the state governor, Monday Okpebolo, to assist in the safe return of their daughter. The victim, alongside other passengers, were abducted during an attack on an 18-seater bus belonging to New Edo Line Transport Company in a Toyota Camry car along the Benin-Auchi Road. A source close to the family said her captors are demanding for the sum of 15 million naira ransom from her and each of the victims. He lamented that the said Gloria was returning to her house, to her base from Okpekpe community in Itsako East local government area, where she went to bury her late father before her abduction. Balarabe Lawal, Minister of Environment, has inaugurated a vehicular air emissions testing center in Maraba, Nasarawa State, as part of efforts to promote a healthier environment. Lawal, who was represented by Alhaji Mahmoud Kambari, Permanent Secretary in the Ministry, performed the inauguration on Monday in commemoration of the 2025 International Day of Clean Air for Blue Skies. The minister stressed that there was no alternative to air, adding that once inhaled, people were exposed to diseases associated with poor air quality. He added that the center, established within the framework of the National Clean Air Program, was a landmark project commemorating the International Day of Clean Air for Blue Skies 2025. The Central Working Committee on Flood Management and Controls has reiterated that the Rivers State government is committed to citizens' education, among other measures to mitigate the impact of flood. Speaking during its sensitization campaign of Zone 3 in Kana local government area, the Secretary to State Government, Professor Ibibia Lucky Worika, stressed that the administration of retired Vice Admiral Ibok Ete Ibaz is fully committed to ameliorating the impact of flooding. Professor Ibibia, who was represented by the Permanent Secretary, Minister of Environment, Oluwel Okerenku, explained that the fight against natural disaster requires collaborative efforts between government and non-governmental agencies. The head of operations, NEMA, Eric Ibodoga, while speaking at the topic, flood management, preparedness, mitigation, and response, noted that citizens must be responsive to the environment by desisting from building on waterways and obeying environmental laws. The chairman of Kana Local Government Area, Thomas Barriere, suggested that local government areas that are flood-prone should also establish standing flood management committees to regularly interface with the state committee on issues regarding flood management and control. Next is business news.
The federal government has called on the National Union of Petroleum and Natural Gas Workers, NUPENG, to suspend its planned nationwide strike, which was scheduled to begin today. The Ministry of Labour, through Minister Mohammed Dingyadi, has summoned both NUPENG and the Dangote Group to a conciliation meeting, stressing that dialogue remains the only solution. Government officials warn that a strike in the petroleum sector could worsen economic hardship, disrupt supply chains, and significantly reduce government revenue. The Nigeria Labour Congress, which had earlier declared a red alert in solidarity, has also been urged to step back while discussions continue. Union Bank of Nigeria is preparing to attract a new core investor following the completion of its merger with Titan Trust Bank. With Titan Trust fully absorbed under the Union Bank brand, the institution is now set to reposition itself for stronger growth, improved efficiency, and broader customer reach. The bank has already expanded its service centers, strengthened its digital platforms, and improved ATM coverage, a move it hopes will make it more attractive to investors. Industry watchers say the bank's strategy is to consolidate its market presence while seeking new investment partners to drive its next phase of expansion. Nigerian businesses, particularly small and medium-sized enterprises, are struggling to survive as bank lending rates soar to as high as 36%. Reports show that many companies are finding it extremely difficult to service existing loans, while others have completely lost access to new financing. Analysts warn that this could dampen business expansion, stall job creation, and weaken economic recovery. With the cost of credit at record highs, some firms are cutting down on operations or shutting their doors. Stakeholders are now calling on regulators to explore policies that could ease the financial pressure on businesses. Central Bank of Nigeria Governor Olayemi Cardoso has hinted that Nigerians could soon see a reduction in interest rates. Speaking at the Eurocharm Nigeria Sea-Level Forum in Lagos, Cardoso explained that with inflation beginning to ease and capital inflows improving, the bank may consider loosening its tight monetary stance. Current lending rates, which range between 32 and 36%, have made access to credit very difficult for businesses and households. He assured that as macroeconomic stability returns, conditions would be created for cheaper loans, improved private sector investment, and faster economic growth. The Nigerian British Chamber of Commerce has reaffirmed its commitment to strengthening economic ties between Nigeria and the United Kingdom. At the Nigeria-UK Business Dialogue held in Lagos, top officials including the UK's Trade Envoy, Florence Eshalomi, Trade Commissioner to Africa, Ben Ainsley, and Nigeria's Permanent Secretary for Industry, Trade and Investment, Nura Abba Reme, discussed ways to remove trade barriers and expand opportunities. NBCC President Prince Abimbola Olasore stressed that the chamber remains a key driver of bilateral trade, citing the newly launched Nigerian-British Trade Center as a tool to boost exports, investment, and cultural exchange. With trade between both nations valued at over £7 billion annually, stakeholders say the dialogue is vital to unlocking new growth beyond oil. At the end of the first weekday of trading, Monday, September 8th on the Nigerian Stock Exchange, a total of 947.8 million shares worth 17.97 billion naira changed hands across 36,006 deals. Compared with the previous trading session, volume fell by 48%, turnover rose 12%, and deals improved 46%. The current market capitalization stands at 88.2 trillion naira. Trading saw 128 equities participate, closing with 41 gainers and 18 losers. PZ Cousins Nigeria led the gainers up 10%, closing at 35 naira 20 kobo per share, followed by University Press with a 10% increase, closing at 5 naira 50 kobo per share, Ella Lakes Nigeria with a 9.94%, closing at 14 naira 27 kobo per share, and Legend Internet with a 9.9% increase, closing at 5 naira 44 kobo per share. On the losing side, Nigerian Animal Wear led the losers, closing at 35 naira 10 kobo per share with a 10% decline, followed by Industrial and Medical Gases with a 10% decline, closing at 33 naira 30 kobo per share. The NGX All-Share Index added 414.74 points to close at 139,394.75, marking a one-week loss of 0.64%, a four-week loss of 4.36%, and a year-to-date gain of 35.43%. The Nigerian Naira showed signs of recovery against the US dollar on Monday, September 8th. The official exchange rate now stands at 1,514 naira 87 kobo per dollar, according to the Central Bank of Nigeria. Meanwhile, in the parallel market, the naira has strengthened to 1,527 naira per dollar, reaching its highest level since July. Analysts attribute the gains to increased liquidity in the system and a rise in Nigeria's foreign reserves, giving businesses and traders a boost as the naira grows closer to stability. That's the update from the Nigerian stock and money market this Tuesday morning. In Abuja, I am Tomsinime Natus.
Israeli army forces raided the house of one of two Palestinian gunmen who killed 6 people in a Jerusalem shooting attack earlier on Monday, residents said. Video showed army vehicles driving through the village of Quantana in the West Bank before stopping outside the house. Further video showed scattered personal belongings and furniture inside the house after the forces left. In a statement by the Israeli military on Monday, the chief of the General Staff, Elia Zamar, was quoted as saying that he had ordered a full closure of the area from which the gunmen came. In the shooting attack, 2 Palestinian gunmen opened fire at a bus stop on the outskirts of Jerusalem, killing 6 people in what police described as a terrorist attack, one of the deadliest in the city in the past few years. Israel police said the attackers were shot dead at the scene by a soldier and an armed civilian. Dozens of mourners gathered on Monday in Jerusalem Funeral Home to bid farewell to one of the victims of an early Palestinian shooting attack at a bus stop on the city's outskirts. 57-year-old Rabbi Levi was killed on Monday morning when 2 shooters opened fire at the crowded bus stop, killing 6 and wounding at least 11 others in what Israeli police described as a terrorist attack, one of the deadliest in the city in the past few years. Ultra-Orthodox men gathered in one side of the body wrapped in a traditional Jewish prayer cloth, while women gathered on its other side inside the home as eulogies were spoken. The Israeli chief of the General Staff was quoted as saying that he had ordered full closure of the area from which the gunmen came. Spain's foreign ministry said a Spanish citizen was among those killed and condemned the attack. France, the EU, and the United Arab Emirates also issued statements of condemnation. Several guns, ammunition, and a knife used by attackers were recovered at the scene, and a suspect from East Jerusalem, whose alleged involvement in the shooting was being investigated, had been arrested, police said. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu warned residents of Gaza City to leave, hours after Israel said it would ramp up airstrike on the enclave. Netanyahu said forces are now organizing and assembling into Gaza City for a ground maneuver after taking down 50 towers in 2 days.
I promised you a few days ago that we will take down the terror towers in Gaza, and this is exactly what we are doing. In the past couple of days, 50 such towers were taken down by the Air Force. Now all this is only an introduction, the SLTV, to the powerful main act, which is a ground maneuver of our forces who are now assembling and organizing, into Gaza City. And this is why I say to the residents of Gaza, I take this opportunity, listen carefully, you have been warned. Leave now. A difficult day in our war against terrorism. 2 despicable terrorists arrive at a bus station, open fire inside the bus, murder 6 of our dear citizens. I send condolences to the families, and I also wish recovery to the injured.
The United Nations condemned the killings of civilians by Israeli forces in Gaza on Monday. The organization also criticized Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, who encouraged Gazans to leave certain areas within the enclave.
Turning to the situation in Gaza, hostilities are continuing to kill and injure people over the weekend. In just the past 24 hours, the Ministry of Health in Gaza reported 67 deaths and 320 injuries. This brings the total toll of people killed since the end of the ceasefire in mid-March to almost 12,000. That's what the local health ministry is telling us. We, of course, continue to condemn the killings of civilians. Meanwhile, over the past 2 days, at least one partner organization has been hit in Gaza City, killing several people, including at least 1 aid worker and 1 child. Our colleagues reminds us that over 80% of Gaza is either under displacement orders or within militarized areas designated by Israel. With the Israeli military instructing people to move from parts of Gaza City southward, OCHA warns that people are in dire need of food, they're in dire need of water, and they're, of course, in dire need of shelter items. Humanitarians were able to support the entry of a limited number of tents in the past week. Much more is needed to support more than hundreds of thousands of people in all parts of the Gaza Strip, north and south alike, as many are repeatedly displaced. Since the confirmation of famine in Gaza Governorate, the Ministry of Health reports that more than 100 people, a quarter of them children, have died from starvation and malnutrition across the Gaza Strip. We stand against any forced displacement of people, that civilians need to be protected, whether they stay or whether they leave.
Nations called for help on Monday for the victims of earthquakes that struck southeastern Afghanistan last week.
The conditions on the ground there are dire. Some families are living in crowded tents, while many are sleeping under the open skies, exposed to rain and cold. There was no clean drinking water and no sanitation. With cholera endemic in the region and initial assessments indicating that 92% of these communities are practicing open defecation, the potential for a cholera outbreak is alarming. These communities are devastated. Everyone I spoke with had lost multiple family members. Most of them are deeply traumatized and in need of psychosocial support. We also observed many malnourished mothers and young children. While nutrition screening and treatment services are ongoing in some sites, this needs to be urgently scaled up. In Afghanistan in recent years, women and girls have been pushed to the very margins of society and survival. We know from previous earthquakes and other crises that women and girls always bear the heaviest burden. This is why their needs must be central to our humanitarian response. Any day, rainfall could cause flash floods in the valleys where the IDP sites have been established. Additional aftershocks could cause more severe landslides, cutting off access to communities still living near the epicenter. Also, at the end of October, the winter season will begin, and snow will cut off access to these mountain valleys. If we don't act now,
a magnitude 6.2 earthquake struck southeastern Afghanistan on Thursday, and the German Research Center for Geosciences said the quake was at a depth of 10 kilometers, GF said. It followed a series of earthquakes earlier last week that killed more than 2,200 people and injured over 3,600 in the country's east, flattened villages and leaving tens of thousands homeless. Survivors have been left homeless, and aid groups warn of dwindling resources, with the United Nations and other agencies citing a critical need for food, shelter, and medical supplies. Manchester City on Monday said they have reached a settlement with the Premier League in their dispute over the league's associated party transactions rules. City said they accepted that the current APT rules, which regulate commercial deals between clubs and companies linked to their owners if deemed over fair market value, are valid and binding, with both parties agreeing to terminate legal proceedings. The case is separate from the charges City are facing over alleged breaches of financial rules. The current APT rules were adopted in November after the majority of the English top-flight clubs voted in favor of some amendments to the previous rules, which were also challenged by City. An independent tribunal ruled in February that aspects of league's APT rules were found to be unlawful. In response, the Premier League said the tribunal's ruling did not affect the valid operation of its current APT rules. And that's the news this hour. I am Christopher Lele. Thanks for watching.